Hi, I'm Kim. You're watching Kim Wilson TV. My channel is dedicated to helping victims of narcissistic abuse get free and stay free. Before we get going with today's video, I just want to take a moment to thank Adeline very much for your donation to our channel's PayPal account. Thank you. For well over a year and a half now, I have been studying and educating myself and working diligently to gather all of the puzzle pieces so we can better understand narcissism. Our friend Doris left a comment recently mentioning oxytocin, and I want to talk about that today. Oxytocin has all kinds of nicknames. It's often referred to as a love hormone, the social hormone, the cuddle hormone, and even the morality molecule. Initially, I started researching the oxytocin hormone, hoping to find a path to accelerated healing for victims and survivors of narcissistic abuse. But I'll tell you, that research started going in all kinds of directions. Not only have we been gravely impacted by this hormone, but so are the narcissists. And I really want to explore this with you guys. Oxytocin is released both in men and women during intercourse. It is this natural, gradual release of oxytocin that allows for two human beings to fall in love with each other in a very natural sort of way. Oxytocin is also responsible for that instant bond that a mother has with her newborn child. It is also the release of this hormone that allows for lactation and mother's breast milk to flow very naturally. Now, for any of you who are mothers, as I am, I've got 5 sons, and we're talking about a pretty strong bond here. I mean, oxytocin really creates an incredibly strong bond. I personally would fight a bear for any one of my kids. There's an American scientist by the name of Dr. Paul Zak. He's been doing a lot of clinical research on oxytocin and has concluded that it is the natural release of this hormone that allows for people to love, to be integral, to display empathy, feel compassion, to be moral. Basically, his tests prove beyond a question that without this hormone, without the ability to love and be empathetic, you simply lack morality. Therefore, he calls it the morality molecule. During intimacy, oxytocin is released, and what it's doing is it's actually creating an emotional bond between two people. So if oxytocin released in small, steady amounts creates a strong bonding agent, I was curious to know what happens when you're involved with a narcissist. Now, when you are targeted by a narcissist, of course, that first identifiable narcissistic maneuver is going to be love bombing. Love bombing is not natural. It is a well-calculated manipulation intended to trap a victim. So when you are over-admired, over-loved, and now you're feeling overwhelmed by all of this, and your head's spinning, and you're in this cyclone of over-exaggerated love and admiration, and then the accelerated fast track to intimacy, as many of us would agree is pretty typical with the narcissist, all of this gets very, very overwhelming. Oxytocin is not being released normally or naturally as if you had been in a relationship with a normal human being. What's happening now through the love bombing, the over-admiration, the rush to intimacy, the hypersexualization, what's going on is your oxytocin is spiking. It's not being released normally. It's actually just soaring through the roof in these really sharp spikes. Natural release of oxytocin is one thing, but when oxytocin is spiking, it's a very different thing. In fact, this is not going to allow for love to develop naturally. What this is referred to by the psychiatric industry is spellbinding. This actually is creating a synthetic love, a forced, manipulated love that is now producing an effect that they refer to as spellbinding. We refer to this often as trauma bond or soul ties. Now, I've had the experience of falling in love naturally, and that's where I could see this very stark difference in the love I believed I felt for Trevor. I've always maintained that it felt forced, contrived, almost synthetic, and I've also said many times that I felt like he'd put a spell on me, like I was in a trance, under some form of hypnosis. Very quickly, my research into the oxytocin hormone started to look like a missing puzzle piece. Absolutely one of the missing puzzle pieces. Oxytocin is released naturally. It creates a natural love, but when it is spiking, when it is erratic, it creates an intense love, almost a crazy love, where people will believe that they've met their soulmate, their twin flame, where the conditions around falling in love were very intense. A very intense love is developed, and it doesn't stop there, unfortunately. This intense love, this crazy-making love, actually creates a hypnotic type state that is very, very hard to get rid of. Thus, I believe this is the reason for this long suffering once victims have left the narcissist. I mean, we all know they're utter pieces of shit. Like, you'll hear people all the time say, look, I know he's deplorable, disgusting, torturing me. I can't stand it, but I love him and I miss him. Now, this really reminds me of drug addiction. A drug addict is definitely getting high, and it is a synthetic high produced by the drug. Now, if this drug addict is fortunate, they get into treatment and recovery, and they get clean off the drugs, and they are now drug-free, their head is still playing games with them. In many cases, years can pass, and the thoughts and ideas of using drugs will continue to come up in a drug addict's mind. This is the exact same for victims of narcissistic abuse. You can recognize that this drug, this huge spike of this hormone is, causing you to feel a synthetic love, causing you to be soul-bound to this thing. You can know that this drug is bad, but you can still be longing for this drug for many, many years after the drug's been removed from your life. Now, the thing is, we don't identify it as a drug. We identify it as a person, as the narc, but it is not the person that we ultimately become addicted to or hypnotized by. It is this release of the oxytocin hormone in unmanageable levels, in these huge spikes that cause this feeling of love-bound, soul-tied, crazy love, really intense love. Okay, so we've got the oxytocin hormone being released in erratic spikes, huge amounts at one time. And then you go into the devaluing stage where now, your once true love doesn't even want to hold your hand while watching a movie. So now this love hormone is now being deprived. You no longer have it. So you get into a frenzied state, and you may not even identify this. This may be totally subconscious, but much like a drug addict, you're looking for that hit again. And when you don't get it, now something else is happening. Now you're withdrawing from that drug. And even small hits of it are not going to be good enough now, because that's not what you've become accustomed to. You've become accustomed to these huge, erratic spikes in it. So now you've got this cut off of it. Now this is gone. So this is what I believe creates this longing and this wanting and this need for the person you once fell in love with. Many times I said to Trevor, hey, if you ever find that guy I once fell in love with, I'd like to talk to him again. Going from huge amounts of the oxytocin hormone to none creates a major problem. And we're going to talk about that in the next video. Guys, I'm Kim. You're watching Kim Wilson TV. Love you guys lots. Hope you're having a great narc-free day.